The grass was green, the Spanish sky an endless blue. Bing Crosby had just beaten two professional golfers, Manuel Pinheiro, world champion, and Cesar de Zulueta, president of the La Moraleja Club. He was 74 years old, but at that moment, walking back to the club, he felt young, invincible, complete. "That was a great game, guys," he said, turning to Valentin Barrios, the resort manager. "Let's have a Coke." They walked 20 meters to the club entrance. 20 meters that seemed like an eternity. And then, without warning, Bing Crosby fell. It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't a hesitation. It was a sudden vertical fall, face first onto the red brick floor. He didn't try to break his fall. He didn't put out his hands. He simply collapsed. Barrios ran. He turned around. Bing's face was pale, almost gray. A huge red bruise stretched across his forehead where he had hit the ground. His eyes were open, but he couldn't see anything. Dr. Lyseca attempted to perform CPR. He injected adrenaline directly into his heart, but it was too late. It was 6:30 p.m. on October 14th, 1977. Harry Lillis Crosby, Bing, was dead, but no one knew what had really killed him. It wasn't just a heart attack. It was something that had been brewing for days, weeks, maybe years. And to understand it, we need to go back to the past. The world watched a happy man die playing golf. A perfect ending to a perfect life. Hollywood sold that story. The headlines blared. Bing Crosby dies doing what he loved. But the truth was different. The truth lay in the last 48 hours. In the decisions you made. In what you saw. In the burden you carried. To understand what happened on that golf course in Madrid, we have to go back 2 days. To London. To a robbed apartment. To an exhausted man who couldn't stop. And nothing would make sense until we knew who he really was in that final moment. By October 1977, Bing Crosby was a living legend. 50 years in the business, more than 1,600 recordings, star of 70 films, the voice that shook Christmas for generations. But he was also a 74-year-old man with a broken spine. In March of that year, just 7 months earlier, he had fallen off a stage at the Ambassador Auditorium in Pasadena. He fell 4.5 meters into the orchestra pit. Bob Hope was in the audience watching. The fall ruptured a disc in his spine. He spent a month in the hospital. His daughter Mary said he was lucky to be alive. He returned to the stage in August in Concord, California. During the concert, the power went out, and Bing kept singing, without a microphone, without amplification, just his voice, that voice. But something had changed. Her friends noticed. There was a new sadness. Or perhaps it wasn't new. Perhaps it had always been there, and now she could no longer hide it. He was tired. His body ached. His back ached. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Because stopping meant thinking. And thinking meant remembering. Remember Dixie, who died in 1952. Remember the children who saw him as a stranger. Remember Lindsay and Dennis, who would take their own lives years later. Remember Gary, who would write a book calling him a monster. So she didn't stop. She kept going. Recording, traveling, singing, smiling, always smiling. September and October of 1977 were a whirlwind. Bing traveled to England with his family and Rosemary Clooney on tour. 2 weeks at the London Palladium, sold-out concerts, standing ovations. The audience adored him. On September 11th, he recorded a Christmas special with David Bowie, Peace on Earth, Little Drummer Boy. They sat down at the piano, two strangers from different generations, and created something timeless. Bowie later said he was worried. Everyone he recorded with died shortly afterward. He was joking, but not entirely. The days went by. Concerts, interviews, photos. Bing smiled. He sang. He did what he always did. But inside, something was wearing away. On October 10th, he gave his last concert at the Brighton Centre. The audience was packed. Gracie Fields, the legendary British artist, was there. She saw him sing. She watched this 74-year-old man with a broken spine give his all on stage. I didn't know this would be the last one. Or maybe I did. October 11th. Tomorrow. Bing woke up in his London apartment. He had a busy schedule. In the morning, he went to the BBC's Maida Vale studios. He recorded 8 songs with the Gordon Rose Orchestra. His last recording was Once in a While, a melancholic ballad about memories that linger. In the afternoon, she did a photo shoot for the album cover. Station's photographer Chris Harding captured him, an elegant man with white hair and tired eyes. Bing posed. He smiled. He did what he always did, but when she returned to the apartment, she discovered something devastating. Her apartment had been robbed. During the concert in Brighton, while she was singing for thousands of people, someone broke into her home. They stole her belongings, her personal items, her privacy. She called the police. She filed a report. She answered questions. But something deeper was happening. A rape. A reminder that no matter how much she gave to the world would keep taking from her. October 12th afternoon. Bing woke up tired. But he had one more thing to do before leaving for Spain. He went to the Cranbrook golf course in Kent. He played 11 holes. He was interested in buying the course. Another project. Another distraction. In the afternoon, he returned to the apartment for an interview with a journalist. He answered questions. He talked about his career, his music, his life, but he didn't talk about the robbery. He didn't talk about his column. He didn't talk about being tired. He never spoke. On the morning of Thursday, October 13th, Bing Crosby flew alone from London to Madrid. Alone. He left his family in England. He left his friends. He flew to Spain to do two things: play golf and hunt partridges. He had plans. On Saturday the 15th, he was going hunting. He was very specific about the gun. He wanted a 20-gauge shotgun. He talked at length with the people at the club during lunch on Friday, but it would never reach Saturday. Bing arrived in La Moraleja on Thursday afternoon. He wasted no time. He went straight to the golf course. He played with Manuel Pinheiro, the world champion. They lost to Cesar de Zulueta and Valentin Barrios. Bing scored 92. It wasn't his best game, but he was excited. Tomorrow will be our lucky day, he said. That night, he ate dinner alone. He went to his room. He slept, or he tried to sleep. Mediodía. Bing had lunch at the club with Manuel Pinheiro, Cesar de Zulueta, and Valentin Barrios. Rafael Silvela, the club's manager, was also present. Years later, he would recall that lunch with painful details. Bing only asked for a cup of chicken broth, a ham sandwich with lettuce and tomato, and a glass of water. Nothing else. A man who had the world at his feet, eating almost nothing. Most of the conversation revolved around the hunt planned for Saturday. Bing was excited, specific, demanding. He wanted everything to be perfect. 14:30. They went out onto the course. 18 holes. The sun was blazing. Bing played well, better than the day before. He and Pinheiro won by 1 point. On the 9th hole, some workers at a nearby house recognized Bing. "Sing us something." Bing smiled. He sang "Strangers in the Night." His voice echoed around the golf course. It was his last performance. 6:30 p.m. The match ended. Bing was happy, radiant even. He had won. At 74 years old, with a broken spine, he had beaten 2 professionals. They walked back to the club. The sun was beginning to set. The sky was golden. "That was a great game, guys," Bing said. "Let's have a Coke." 20 meters to the entrance. 15. 10. And then, he fell. Valentin Barrios saw everything. Bing simply collapsed, as if someone had cut the cables holding him upright. He fell face down onto the red brick floor. The noise was horrifying. Bone against brick. Barrios ran. Others ran. They turned Bing onto his back. His face was pale, gray. A huge red bruise stretched across his forehead. His eyes were open, fixed. Dr. Lyseca, the club doctor, was there. He rushed to Bing. He massaged his heart. He prepared an adrenaline injection. He injected it directly into his heart. Nothing. The ambulance arrived. They took him to Queen Victoria Hospital. They tried to resuscitate him on the way. They tried again at the hospital. But Harry Lillis Crosby had already left. He received the last rites. They declared him dead. A sudden heart attack. Widowmaker, they say. One of those who kill before they fall. The newspapers published a good news story. Bing Crosby dies playing golf. The perfect ending. But it wasn't perfect. It was tragic. Because that man who fell on the golf course was exhausted. He had fallen off a stage 7 months earlier. He fractured his spine. He spent a month in the hospital. And instead of resting, he went back on stage. He toured. He recorded. He traveled. Alone. In the last 48 hours, he recorded 8 songs. He had a photo shoot. He dealt with the police after being mugged. He played golf twice. He flew to another country. Alone. He was 74 years old. He was in pain. He was tired. But he didn't stop. Because stopping meant facing the void. And the void was more terrifying than death. Hollywood didn't tell this part. Hollywood didn't tell about the robbery in the apartment. about the man who ate only broth and a sandwich for his last lunch, about the loneliness. Hollywood sold the myth, the smiling icon who died doing what he loved. But the truth? The truth was much darker. Bing Crosby was the first multimedia superstar, the first voice to reach every American home. He defined Christmas. He defined popular music. He defined an era. But in the end, he was just a man who didn't know how to stop, a man who smiled while he was falling apart inside, a man who, in the last 48 hours of his life, worked until his last breath. The heart attack wasn't a coincidence. It was the culmination of decades of pressure, pain, loss, and exhaustion. It was the body finally saying, enough. And perhaps the most painful question is, did anyone really know him? Was there a man behind White Christmas and the smiles that no one ever saw? His last words were about Coca-Cola, not about love, not about family, not about regrets. A Coca-Cola. And then, silence. 4 days later, on October 18th, Bing Crosby was buried in Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Private mass. Few people attended. His Christmas special with David Bowie aired on November 30th, 6 weeks after his death. Millions watched it. They cried. They remembered him. But they didn't know. They knew nothing about the last 48 hours, about the robbery, about the exhaustion, about the man who flew alone to Spain because he couldn't take it anymore. Today, when we hear White Christmas, we hear a ghost. We hear a man who dedicated his life to giving others what he never had, peace. And perhaps that is the real secret that Hollywood has been hiding. It's not that Bing Crosby died happy. He died exhausted, alone, and yet smiling, because that's what the world expected of him, and it never disappointed.